Hey?
Okay, you're good to go.
Right. Right, welcome to this workshop today in regards to local government system improvements amendment bill submission. We've got apologies in regards to the same.
Councillor Morrison,
And
Chairman
Horrell.
Horrell,
Someone to move those.
Councillor, oh, did he
Oh,
apologise?
Neville moved.
I think he's apologised before.
Okay, that's all good. Someone to accept those.
Yep.
Lyndall and Peter, all in favour, say aye. Aye. Yeah, it's carried. Right, we'll move straight into this. And hand over to Marcus to run us through this. Late, we did have this quite late, but we'll work through it with you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. So, yeah, appreciate the opportunity to get in front of the committee again, or the council again today. So seeking to, I guess, work through the draft submission on the local government system improvement amendment bill.
Always got to be one, right?
Is that better? Perfect. Yeah, so seeking to, we circulated it this afternoon for council to have a quick read, so it's only 6 pages, so I appreciate that some of you won't have been across it. So what we'll do is we'll try and get through it reasonably quickly. We've got half an hour set aside, and I think it's about 5 topics. So what we'll do is we'll focus on the recommendations, and so effectively the way the submission is framed up, there's a bit of a précis of some general context, then some recommendations in bold for the certain sections. So we'll work through and talk about the recommendations, and if we really need some more context, then we can flick back up to the context that informs those recommendations. If it's a good way to go.
Do you want to run through it, or we go through bit by bit and clarify that?
Yeah, I think if we focus on the recommendations, because that will
Okay,
be the position that we land on, and then if we need to retone the context, we can duck away and do that in the meantime. So it's effectively due Thursday next week, yeah, or Wednesday next week. So if we get it through today, and then we can flick it past for another read through, and then get it out the door next week.
Okay.
So we'll whiz down to paragraph 8. Work through the recommendations. Apologies for the voices.
Okay. So you've got us under control.
Yeah, well, yeah. So effectively, paragraph 8 talks about the 4 well-beings and them being removed from the Local Government Act. So where we've landed is that if the 4 well-beings are removed, Environment Southland would prefer that the purpose of the Local Government Act from the 2014 to 2019 version be reinstated, and it's got clause 10 there with the subsections. But I think our general position is that the 4 well-beings remain, but if they are to go, then those are our recommendations that we endorse the prior version last time they came out.
Just to clarify, they are still in there.
Currently, and this bill is to remove the 4 well-beings.
Right, it's just, sorry, just a point of clarification. It's paragraph 7 on here. Paragraph 8, is there something been added, or I don't know why?
I may have hit that.
Nothing extra. I'm just asking, just quick, because you're a paragraph 8, huh?
Yeah, paragraph 8. I think I'm
My one's 8.
Oh, hang on, never mind.
We've got the right.
Just, it's
question.
different.
So if they're taking out the 4 well-beings, what are they replacing it with, or are they just leaving the whole?
Performance is the only one.
yeah. Yeah.
Paragraph 7.
Bear with us for 1 minute. There's a slide that touches on that, so I'll just quickly go to this slide.
Can I just ask a question while you're looking? Is that right? Just regarding the ratings cap. and we just play that out, how does the government see future canoa programs operating? I'm just trying to get my head around that.
It's hard to understand exactly what that looks like. How those rates caps going to go, whether they're going to go rates capping for operational expenditure, for capital expenditure, for projects, how they're going to slice and dice those caps, or whether it's going to be this is the envelope, make it work. There's very little detail that we've seen exactly how a rates cap could come out. So yeah, the bill isn't looking to do rates caps yet. It's just, I guess, trying to foresee if we head down that path of being required to do a whole number of things as in the statute, and the community wanting a whole lot of other things done. How do you try and prioritise?
It's only going to make consent more expensive, isn't it? Because you're going to lump more costs onto consent. So
Correct.
I hope we're being a little bit, not cheeky, but a little bit running on a fine line, communicating that to the public as well. I don't think we are. I think we're just sitting there going, oh, well, we'll just see what they say first. But we could.
Yeah.
Sorry, are we doing the four well-beings? Are we? Oh, no, are we sorted? Or?
Well, let's talk about that first.
Derek had a
Well, it's come up now, I can see
So
it.
carry on with well-beings.
Reinstate. Remove and then reinstate, so I've got that there, reinsert. Yep, my question's been answered,
Okay,
thank you.
Mine's about this as well.
yeah, yours about the same thing.
Well, I'm
You-
going to talk to John's question.
Okay, we're doing the well-beings. We'll come back to that.
So
No, the rates cap. Is that right?
Yeah, because
Yeah, Lyndall.
so the
Peter, sorry.
away you go, Peter.
Okay,
I'm saying with Robert,
okay, no, that's fine. We'll get the four
I'll
well-beings.
stick to the well-beings.
Anybody else for rates?
I've got something to say about rates as well, but I'll stick to the well-being. So two questions, I guess. Firstly, what's the motivation, the actual motivation for removing the four well-beings? If somebody can articulate that for us, that would be helpful. Yeah, in an acceptable way. And secondly, what are the wider implications of it not being in there? So I have my own assumptions in my head, so I just need to make sure that what I'm thinking about is how your interpretation.
So potentially, if our recommendation is accepted, the key practical implications may not be significant, because what we have been heard from the regional sector, based on their experience, is that when the purpose section in the Act looked differently, when it didn't have the whole well-being aspect, in terms of practice, there wasn't much of a difference. So because the current government's main drive in introducing this change, I suspect, is to, based on the beehive discussions, it's to make the councils stick to the basics as opposed to the good to haves. But the numbers that have been shared suggest that the councils are already adhering to the basics, so it's unlikely to make a substantial difference. But one proposal, which is the third point in the first section showing key proposals, currently in the bill, is that they are suggesting addition of a third part, which is to support local economic growth and development by fulfilling purpose set out in paragraph B. So there is a strong emphasis on economic development, and that is the difference between what's proposed in the bill and what we had until 2019. So there may be implications flowing from that change. So that's why we are suggesting we want to reinstate what we had in the past, which is unlikely to have substantial implications for the councils. But we have slight concern about the current proposal.
Yeah, so in my head, I've got it as an undermining of our treaty responsibilities and of responsibilities to our treaty partners, because for whatever reason, some people think that that complicates things or slows things down or makes it too hard. So that's the lens that I've been looking at, that removal of the four well-beings. So any way that we can maintain that interest in there is important, I think, even if it's not called the four well-beings. But I think we have to be really careful about the impact of the Regulatory Standards Bill and these things that are completely undermining our treaty partners, in my view.
just to talk to that treaty partner piece, there's a bit further down in the submission in paragraph 29 that talks about
Strongly.
deleting clause 16 of the bill and how that
Sorry, I
works
think we've
with
got all the way
governance
through.
and tikanga and that sort of process within local government. So
Strongly.
yeah, we'll touch on that point soon as well.
Great, thanks.
Peter, you want to talk about the
Yes.
well-beings? Yeah.
Yeah, just following on from what Lyndall said, some years ago, we had our local development agency, used to be called Venture Southland, go to Great South, but within that change was their dropping of the community benefit goals to mainly around and shift straight to economic development. So they lost that function, and now we're proposing that councils lose that function, so that's no more libraries, book buses, those types of things. So I wonder who is going to pick them up, or do we just be no art galleries, no museums, none of this stuff? I think it could be an overreaction, and yes, there has been some irresponsible spending around the country. I think that's been quite clear, but 80% of the rates collected by councils in this country is spent on the core infrastructure needs of the country. So I don't think it's terribly out of control with what we're talking about, but yeah, there's some high profile examples that government's made of some councils.
Yeah, and it's probably, I guess, a trend or a theme, I guess, of this whole bill is the stepping away of local democracy and local decision and being able to just decide on prioritisation and spending and, making decisions that best reflects your community. If they're saying, hold on, if everything's got to have an economic lens or, then that's the direction you should go. Whereas, local democracy is that the community that voted council on has trust in the community, on the council, and then the council makes decisions based on prioritisation around where the money should be spent and the actions and what's going to get the best bang for buck. It's I guess a general theme of the bill is sort of looking at the delivery and the local democracy piece. So it probably talks to if you're changing the ability of being able to make decisions at a local government level, then the role of local government and how do you enact the will of the constituents to undertake the actions.
Just got a point of clarification. The 4 well-beings, were they overridden by Tomato Tuai, didn't they? At some stage. That was, is that all?
Yeah, separately, effectively 2 different bits of legislation. So RMA was Tomato Tuai,
Yeah.
and then the Local Government Act is the for well-being. So
Yeah.
effectively looking at all well-beings when you go through the decision-making process. Sorry.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair, Councillor McDonald, they do actually define in the proposal what those core services are considered to be, and it does include libraries, museums, reserves and other recreational facilities, along with things that you would typically expect: network infrastructure, public transport, waste management, civil defence, emergency management.
Very good. Thank you.
Robert and Morris.
Well, with regard to your question, you'll know that Maggie Thatcher famously said there's no such thing as society, which is the driver behind the neoliberal system that's coming to the fore globally now. And this coalition government are champions of that. We shouldn't blind ourselves to what's actually happening. Because I imagine the 4 well-beings would have been a liberal left-wing Labour Party led initiative, and it's got to go simply because it's got to go. And it's happened over and over and over on so many different levels over the last 18 months. This is no different. It's a huge threat to community. So I don't think we should underestimate what's happening here with privatisation being the final goal. You talk about these different assets that communities have. They're not going to have them for long. They'll be privatised, and it's already happening at pace. So I think it's really a critical point that we're looking at here. And I really like the approach you two have taken. Well, you've taken to this. It's some strong language in there, but we should be alert to what's really happening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Morris.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not sure. I think we should push back a little bit more on retaining the full well-beings. I know that, you know, from our point of view anyway, that environmental matters are really important. I'm not sure. I think your suggestion kind of sidesteps that, but it allows local government to do what it wants to do, basically, in regard to all of those things, which is good and bad, depending on which local government you've got. I did read this through this morning pretty quickly, obviously, but I'm not sure if I can recommend anything specific other than being a bit stronger about, for example, in the paragraph, it's my paragraph 6. I don't know if it's the same as yours now because the numbering is a wee bit different, as Jeremy said before. You do talk about important statutory functions such as hazard management, environment monitoring, compliance, biosecurity, and RMA planning, etc. But having regard to what as Robert says, what the present government wants to do is to do away with all of that, or at least sideline it or deprioritise it, the environmental, social, and cultural well-being of communities. It's clearly a flawed philosophy. And sure, you've got to have economic growth and development. Maybe somehow we could retain those words in there, but say that we like to promote the economic well-being of communities while ensuring environmental, cultural, and social factors are protected, or something like that. So it's kind of still putting that economic development there, but making sure, I know that's the kind of terminology that's used in legislation. But I don't know what you think about that, Hayley, as being a planner of the experience, whether or not those sorts of words would be useful or not.
Through you, Chair, that I think is something we absolutely could explore, and to see how's that worked in planning practice, and then actually would that translate across into legislation and provide us with the outcomes that you are collectively seeking.
I assume we do agree that we want those things, those full well-beings to be there. We don't want them to be done away with totally, do we?
I mean, that's a question. Does anybody see that they need to be removed? I think we're all on the same page there. There's no, so how can we actually reaffirm that from our position to make it very firm? They must be there in regards. I suppose is that the point we want to make in it. Make it simple, but
So the retain the status quo.
Yeah. And is that everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Lyndall, you're right.
Yeah, no, I was going to say actually that I've been trying to find a way where reinsert the 2014-2019 would fit comfortably with me, but the only way I could see of doing it is in C, adding to support local economic, cultural, and community growth, because actually they're all the package that is the community, the four well-beings actually. But if everybody else is okay with leaving the status quo, then that's also fine with me, because it's the loss of community stuff that you're talking about, Peter. So yeah, it's fine.
Just quickly, Peter, and then we'll.
Yeah, I've got to have a bit of a general comment on this. Is that I might be a bit out there by saying this, but we've got a group of elected officials in Wellington saying that we don't trust some elected officials and councils right across the country to do a good job. Campaigned on getting Wellington out of the regions and trusting the locals. It's sort of not going in that direction. Well, I'm pretty clear it's not. So I'm just making the statement that has been swept aside. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, that's all right. So Marcus, you've got a pretty good indication.
Yeah.
And if you confirm our point of view, maybe you've got it there, but.
Mr. Chairman, there's one other minor point back in paragraph 4, where there's some bullet points.
Yeah.
The second to last bullet point, this last sentence there doesn't quite make sense. where it says newspapers removed by amended other, etc. Have a look at that.
Thank you, Morris.
The next section we'll move into is prioritising core services. And the preliminary paragraphs also talk about with the prospect rates, caps and horizons. This may require regional councils to reduce funding, statutory functions, which is outside the core services. So although it isn't part of this process, if there is going to be a rates capping going forward, then it answers that very question that Councillor Pemberton was talking about before around, how do you get all the things done and fees and charges and the implications, the flow-on effect, and even the investments. Is there a stronger need to enhance the investment portfolio and get other streams of revenue to continue delivering functions? And those are all options around that sort of stuff moving forward. So effectively, what we've got in the next section is we don't support the approach. So we're recommending removing clauses 7 and 18 of the bill, and alternatively, if the concept of core services is retained, having a couple of qualifiers in there to support the direction moving forward.
Okay, Robert.
Just to take the opportunity, because you mentioned John's question about the rates capping, I was going to say that, and you looked at, you finessed the possibilities. There's not just one approach to keep it down below 5% or whatever was originally being asked for by the Taxpayers Union and their representatives. I see, I don't know if you get their emails, but they're in panic mode because it's not quite going as well as they hoped it might. So I think that what will happen is that they will filter down to a range of things such as Marcus describes, rather than just no rates above 5% or whatever the original idea was. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, well, I hope that's right, Robert, what you're saying, the rates capping, basically with our infrastructure deficits on the horizon, we've been in a de facto rates capping situation for a very long time. Let's be honest about that. 144 bridges or 130 bridges didn't just wind up on the council's box overnight. So that's a long process of kicking that can down the road. I'd be really concerned if this current generation kicked the can down the road to the next. I think that's dishonest in my view. And I hope what you're saying, Robert, things are softened around those edges, that we can go in and do the work that needs to be done. Some courageous councils and councillors can make those decisions.
My view is obviously, I think at the end of the day, if you put a rates cap on, you're going to decline the level of services. No matter what the community wants, you'll be just restricted how much you can do, and you've always got to be going forward. I'm not saying you need high rates increases, but you've got to be pretty practical about these things. I think it's because we've underrated in the past, where we're dealing with we haven't been paying for the levels of services that we think we need in the past. So, I'm certainly against it, but I'm happy with what you got here. Lyndall.
On the rates capping thing, I suggest you look at how the Australians do it, because their model's not completely unacceptable. Actually, they have rates capping, but they also have really sound federal investment in the infrastructure. So, if that was the case, then we could look at this very differently here. But central government don't do the investment. So have a look at the Australian model. It's worth a consider. Otherwise, I'm good with the recommendation.
Are we all happy with that? Yep. Okay, we'll move on.
Thanks very much. Next section is around transparency and accountability. So effectively the proposal is looking at standardising elected members' code of conduct, and there's an opportunity. Do we want to head down that path, or do we still think that each different council could amend and have their own code of conduct to be able to do the things they need to do, or is it sort of standardised approach the better approach? So effectively, we generally support the position that elected members modify and standardise the code of conduct as they see fit, while it's not inconsistent with the Act. So
Anybody, any comments? Robert?
Just wondering if you see any potential for that to be abused. A centralised code of conduct is the kind of thing that I imagine Trump might favour, because you can have a lot of power in that. So your suggestion that it remains a localised decision-making process is really good. So I think what you've proposed there is really good, but I just wondered if you saw anything sinister in that. I mean, it's why are they suggesting that?
Yeah, and I guess through you, Chair, there's probably a couple of examples in Parliament. There's opportunities to remove people from the House, whereas around council table, the I guess the censorship and the ability to manage behaviours and those sorts of things aren't the same as central politics. So it's whether we should be heading down that path and having a few more consequences for out of line behaviour, or whether it's standardised approach. So a couple of different options there. Thinking about how that should work and whether that's appropriate.
I was going to add to Marcus's just in terms of the rationale. It's quite interesting. So it generally has come about because they want to emphasise the importance of freedom of expression for elected members, along with their responsibility to collaborate effectively, in particular, and it would include measures to improve information sharing between councils and elected members. So looking at that information between staff up to councillors to ensure that councillors are able to receive all information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eric?
I don't think this is particularly aimed at our council, but there are some stroppy councils around the country that probably need a bit more than standing orders. But then I think to keep things simple, you need to insert into standing orders the bit that you need to do to maintain behaviour, because then arises the question which takes precedence, code of conduct or standing orders, and I just think keep it simple. So I would be more inclined to amend standing orders to embrace what the code of conduct is intended to do. It's just my view.
Thanks. Linda and then Stuart.
Yeah, just really quickly, my first reaction to this was, don't you dare tell me what to do. But on reflection, I think that a really basic standard code of conduct for across the country is not a ridiculous idea, but the key part is provide for the regional customisation, because I think there are times when, and we've been through it recently ourselves, where we made decisions about process and stuff, and I think that's really important because it's all relative. So yes, I'm up for your provide for regional customisation. And are they proposing that it costs to access that? Or are you just ensuring that we don't have to pay for use of?
That is a possibility. Because the entity called Standards New Zealand is being proposed to be the leading organisation in terms of issuing the standards. And
right.
This organisation currently charges for various
standards
that they provide, such as air quality related standards. So
yeah, so yes, I'd be up for free access, thank you. And now I'm a wee bit more nervous about it, having realised that it's that organisation that would be writing the code.
Right. Stuart?
I guess this just takes me back to my comment before about the government establishing standards, and this is just one of those standards. And so how do we go about having input into developing those standards, or are they just passed on down to us? Somebody else is developing and no one's able to have any input into what those standards might look like. And once again, I'll go back to national policies and national policy statements, not one or the other, but I was always very comfortable with national policies and that the local authorities and such like were able to carry on the business as long as they were basically consistent with those national policies, which would allow for provide for regional customisation. as long as you stay consistent with whatever that national policy. But these standard codes are going to be a bit more restrictive, I'm guessing, from what little I do know about them. It sounds like they're going to be very restrictive and unable to be challenged. So,
Thanks, Stu. So we've got recommendation. Do we need to change that recommendation? Are we happy with
No, I think it's pretty good.
it? It's all good?
Yeah.
Everybody happy?
Agreed.
Right. Okay, we'll move on.
Next section is about measuring and publicising council performance. So effectively looking to benchmark councils against each other and expand what's currently benchmarked, and group activities that councils must include in LTPs. We generally oppose it. Effectively, you've got a finance performance committee that keeps the organisation accountable. You've got the ability to make those decisions about prioritisation and tracking of how things are going, and direct things as needed to be back on track. And it's difficult to compare levels of standards, performance indicators across different councils, where you've got Kanoa funding coming in for one thing and it's different in Otago and Canterbury, and it's not apples with apples across a number of different aspects. So we don't necessarily think that central government needs to have a consistent benchmark across all councils, because the nature of the business and the work that goes on and the prioritisation around the table reflects the positions garnered in the council and the long-term plan, prioritisation, those sorts of things. So we don't see that there's a need to incur additional costs and go through the process of benchmarking and having consistent measures.
Well expressed.
Rob, Peter.
Is that the-
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say that what you've said, well expressed, and if that's what you've written down there, I'd be totally in support of that. It's actually, like a lot of these things, quite a threatening thing. The general tenor of opposition to all councils hinges around this, and they're shifting the decision-making power, the influence, away from local government to some central agency, which is then influenced by the lobby groups. And so it's just the same old crap going on. So what you've described is the perfect response to counter that attempted move, in my view.
Thanks. Yes, well expressed. Would add that we already have, I think, 2 avenues for benchmarking against other councils. There's some qual mark thing or something, and some other thing as well that LGNZ have. So there's already that if you want to do it. Audit, they assess our performance, and ultimately they have almost the final say, actually, frighteningly. And also, coming from my professional background, once they start introducing competition, the collegiality of that space is completely gone. So as much as we might have some tension around our TAs across the country, not just us, it's nothing like introducing a bit of competition that'll make that even worse and unmanageable. So absolutely endorse what you said, Marcus. Thanks.
Yeah, hey, there's already someone sent me this about the internal affairs. Put out a small provincial and rural group of councils throughout New Zealand, benchmarking them on multifaceted indicators. So that facility's there. You'd be pleased to know Gore is within there, and I'll leave it to you to make your decisions on the efficiency of that council on there, but it's highlighted. So there is a facility there if people go looking for it. And also I'd just like to make the comment, it's pretty obvious, Robert, political stuff and could be verging in different views. It doesn't matter about this. This stuff stays through political cycles. So if you're a fan of this government or not, that's not the point. The point is the next cycle and the next cycle and the next cycle after that, the stuff stays in place.
No, all good. Everybody, we're all happy. Look, I think we're doing. When I looked at this, I just said, it dynamics between councils are, it's just so many variances. I mean, we're extreme with the amount of area and we're with the low rating base. How do you compare it with another one that's completely different? And it's always going to be there's going to be extremes. And sorry.
I can't believe they're being so ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean,
Sorry.
even when they're saying requiring employees, what was it, contractors, and we're already doing that. I think we're already saying that what we're spending on consultants and contractors and things. But anyway, I'm happy. So everybody else is happy.
Yeah.
Move on. Yep.
Thanks very much. The last section is called proposals for regulatory relief for local government. So effectively, the key proposal is to remove the requirement for councils to consider whether tikanga Maori and also public notice requirements in relation to public notices. So effectively, we strongly oppose the proposal to remove the requirement for councils to consider whether tikanga Maori knowledge may be relevant to the governance of a council-controlled organisation. That removal is at odds with what we do as Environment Southland proposal. So I'm reading from paragraph 27 on the draft submission, and also recognise the relationship with Ngāi Tahu and the value they bring into decision making. And in terms of the public notices, effectively, your removal of the requirement for public notices and newspapers represent a significant cost saving for council. So it's about how that public notices happen with council. So we've tried to reflect that in our recommendation. Peter?
Yeah, why can't we consider, that's what it means. So that's further eroding of the democracy. That's my view.
I'm not entirely sure I'm in favour of removing the requirement for newspaper notifications. I know it's a huge cost, but there are large parts of our community that don't have access to any other way of getting their public information still. Some are wee, but I'm not sure about that actually. There's a whole lot of connectivity issues. There's a whole lot of, we can't assume that everybody's got a smartphone or even a cell phone just because we do. So yeah, I'm not sure I would want newspapers removed completely, but I'm open to persuasion.
Adrian.
May I? Just on that, yeah, Shana and I had a decent discussion about this point. It's not that we wouldn't continue to use newspapers. Obviously, we use newspapers to promote a lot of things. There are some requirements in the Act for public notices for changes to various like plans or those kinds of and things that like the catchment operations team do have to go on public notice. It would just mean it would give us a bit more flexibility to save some money. And so at the moment, the print public notices are more expensive than the display ads in a newspaper. So, if we wanted to, we could potentially look at, a different way of doing the print advertising. At the moment, there's no flexibility.
Right, understood.
There's also the challenge of, the Southland Times and the ODT both being quite popular in Southland. So now we don't have just one major to contend with. We've got two, and they're both, really expensive in terms of printing.
And I would suggest that the weekly is way
that's
more used to us than the daily. Okay, I understand your point.
Oh, no, well, with that explanation, I think that's good. I support the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would just encourage us, say us, to consider tikanga Māori and just to obviously remind her that word tikanga is actually some of the Māori terms that backwards. So ngā tika is all that is right, is what that word tikanga is meaning. So surely there could be an expectation that everyone might consider all that is right as far as from a Māori perspective. Surely can be a consideration from deliberations.
Yeah, I think the relationship, the partnership we have with Ngāi Tahu, we don't want to, we want to move forward with it and enhance it, so I think you have full support for us to be in this council. So, no, so is everybody happy with that recommendation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Much.
About it, is it?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll make some changes and circulate a draft the next day or so, and look to get it signed and submitted on the Wednesday next week.
Okay, I'm just looking for, so that's the workshop, you've all sorted then?
Yep.
All happy? Okay, well, we'll close the workshop. Well done, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, why can't more councils be like us?
Thanks, team. Good job.
All good.
Sure.
Good.